Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UBC Engineering Meet Your First Year Professors. We are super excited to have you here today for this session. Yeah, this is amazing. This is super exciting. So today you're going to get to meet two professors from UBC's Okanagan campus. You're also going to get to meet two professors from UBC's Vancouver campus. Super exciting stuff to be getting to chat with them beforehand. And we're really excited for you to be here today and taking time out of your busy schedules to be joining us for this session. My name is Kyle. I'm an engineering advisor at UBC's Okanagan campus. Myself and my colleague Marie will be your hosts for today. I would like to start off about speaking about UBC's campuses and the lands that they're situated on. So UBC's Vancouver campus is situated on the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Musqueam peoples. UBC's Okanagan campus is situated on the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation and their peoples. And I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the lands that you are joining us from today. A few notes to go over before we dive right into today's session. This is a virtual event, and we want to make sure you're comfortable and you're understanding this platform. So make sure to check your settings. You could be checking your own audio settings or your own video settings. Hopefully you have a secure internet connection for this session here. We are going to be using the Q&A function, question and answer function later on throughout the session. If you look at your Zoom window down at the bottom, along the same panel where you can see muting audio or turning on and off video, you'll see a Q&A function in there. That's where you're going to be submitting your questions. We have a lot of students joining us today. You can submit your own question, or you can actually upvote one of the other questions that are out there, so we don't see a lot of repetitive questions coming in. But please do your best to use that Q&A function rather than the chat. Closed captioning is also available. You can toggle that on and off in your Zoom functions as well. And if you have to head out halfway through this session, or if you have some friends who weren't able to make it here tonight, we will be offering a recording. So any student that registered for this, you'll get an email of the recording. We'll also post it to our YouTube channel where you can see any other video in our series or lots of other cool, engaging online content of current UBC engineering students as well. Here's all the great folks that you're going to be meeting here today. You have myself. You also have Marie. We are both engineering advisors. Franco is also an advisor. He is typically on the Vancouver campus, but he's traveling, attending another engineering event. He sends his best for this session. You're also going to get to meet from UBC's Vancouver campus, Peter and Carol, professors, and as well as Dean and Vuder, professors from UBC's Okanagan campus. So super exciting stuff for today's session. As we're moving along here, we would like to get to know a little bit more of each of you, though. If you're comfortable, here's a chance where you can use the chat function. Type into that chat function where you're joining from today, maybe your home city, country, province, state. If you're comfortable, please feel free to share. We'd love to see where everyone's joining us from. This is the agenda, an overview of what we're going to be covering in today's session. We'll have a quick discussion about what happens next now that you have applied. Then we'll get to the main exciting point. We'll get to chat with first year instructors, and then we'll have some time to answer as many questions as we can towards the end of the presentation. Okay, I'm seeing some. Oh, nice. Lots of folks participating here. We've got folks from across BC, Saskatchewan, Costa Rica, Alberta, Ontario, Winnipeg, Surrey, Cameron. This is amazing. Wow, Saudi Arabia, Minnesota. So cool. So cool. Okay, this is great. Thanks so much for participating, everyone. We're super excited to have all of you here today. This is, of course, an exciting time. So you've shown an interest in UBC, you've shown an interest in engineering. I'm going to assume because of this, you've applied to UBC Engineering. What happens next? What happens now that you've submitted this application? Maybe you've already received an admissions decision. Maybe you have not received an admissions decision. In short, no news is still good news. But let's jump into it. So as we're going through, as UBC Admissions is taking a look at everyone's applications, the majority of decisions could be sent out between that December to April timeframe. Stay up to date on your application. You can check your application service center. You can check your status. Sometimes admissions may need more information from you, and they'll put that in there. If they have not yet made a decision on your application, you're still in the running. You're still in the running. It's possible they could even be making a decision on your second choice of your application, and you still haven't heard a decision on your first choice. That's okay too. You're still in the running for those applications. If you need to be submitting additional documents, or you need to be submitting updated documents, maybe final transcripts are finalized, your final grades come in, you can check your applicant service center. You can follow those instructions carefully to learn how to submit those final documents. And if you have any questions related to anything to admissions, we have an entire team of admissions professionals who are able to support you. We also share scholarship decisions a little bit later on. There's important deadlines coming up as well, maybe for housing applications. You'd want to make sure you're following all of that information closely. If you have questions, though, please reach out to that admissions office. If you're looking to find out more about how to apply for housing, we do have that first year housing guarantee. If you haven't heard about that, it's definitely worth checking out. You can go to the housing office website. There's a specific website for the Okanagan campus. There's a specific website for the Vancouver campus. The deadline to apply for housing to keep that first year guarantee, if you're coming direct from high school, is May 1st, and that's quickly approaching. So make sure you're following that. But here are some main tips. Check your email regularly for updates. You want to monitor that. You could be asked to perform a task, and you want to make sure you're doing that in a timely manner. UBC's main point of communication right now, as you're transitioning into your life at UBC, and actually later on as a current student, it's through email. So you'd want to make sure you're checking your email. And if you have more than one email, you'd want to check the email that you submitted within your application, or you assigned as your primary contact within that applicant service center. If you have questions about any of this, please reach out to UBC Admissions through that main contact page. It's also important, if you're still in courses right now, to finish strong in those courses that you're in right now, so you can maintain any admission offers that might be coming through. But again, today's session, it's not about admissions, it's about meeting some first year UBC instructors. I would like to welcome you all and introduce you to my colleague, Marie, fellow engineering advisor. Hi, Marie.
Hey, Kyle, thank you so much for giving that great overview and answering those commonly asked questions that we know students are still really waiting on answers for. So I appreciate you reviewing all of that with everyone today. So I'm Marie Reed. I'm an engineering advisor at the UBC Okanagan campus. I actually completed my engineering degree at the Okanagan campus quite a few years back, and went and worked in the field for a few years before coming back and doing my graduate studies here. And now I have the privilege of being able to work in the engineering faculty and meet and talk to students interested in engineering and help you really find the right path for you. We have 4 amazing professors that are here with us today. Like Kyle was talking about earlier, we have 2 from the Vancouver campus, Professor Pete and Professor Carol, and we have 2 from the Okanagan campus, Assistant Professor Dean and Assistant Professor Voder. So I just want to give you a minute, make sure everyone's on camera. Perfect, awesome. So we're going to dive right in now. I just want to say first, we're so happy to have all 4 of you joining us today to share a bit about your engineering journey, but mostly talking today about what incoming first year students can expect from their courses and just that first year experience. We're going to start off today with each of our professors here sharing a little bit about themselves, introducing themselves, and then we're going to move on to some panel questions before opening it up to the audience here today to ask any questions you have to our first year professors. So we're going to start with Professor Pete today with your introduction. So I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people joining today. Really happy to be able to spend a little bit of time with you. My name is Peter Ostafachuk. Everyone calls me Dr. Pete, though. I'm a professor of teaching at UBC in Vancouver. My home base is mechanical engineering, but most of my time is spent as the chair of first-year engineering. So I'm very heavily involved with the development and the delivery of courses in the first-year program at Vancouver. A little bit about my background. I actually was one of the very first students to set foot on the UBC Okanagan campus, and it wasn't UBC Okanagan at the time, it was Okanagan College back then. But brand new buildings, that's where my engineering journey started. And then I came out to UBC Vancouver to continue. I was originally going to go into civil engineering, and then I decided mechanical, and then that became engineering physics, and I did a bachelor's there. Eventually found my way back into mechanical engineering, where I've worked on things like autonomous submarines, and I do sports aerodynamics research, a little bit of everything, but I'd say really my passion is in the first year engineering program and making those courses the best possible courses we can for our students. So thanks.
Thanks so much. I'm now going to pass it over to Professor Carol.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually, and hopefully we'll see some of you on campus in September. I have two roles here at UBC. I'm a professor of teaching in the electrical and computer engineering department, and I'm also an associate dean academic, which means that I have an administrative role where I help look after things related to curriculum and accreditation and academic policy and all manner of different things, transfer credits, you name it, many, many things. So that gives me a really good understanding of all of our different programs. I've picked up and learned lots of things along the way about all of our different programs beyond the one that I teach in. I also teach in our first year program along with Dr. Pete and a team of really dedicated colleagues. And how I got to be here, hard to say, but as a kid, I was taking things apart and putting them back together and trying to figure out how they worked and fixing them. And so I think it was kind of a natural progression for me. And I started out being interested in biomedical engineering. I think that was because I liked medical things, but not so much the gory bits. So engineering, biomedical engineering seemed, diagnostic tools and things like that seemed like the way to go. And I did some work in that, but I really did end up enjoying teaching, and more generally, I spend most of my time either doing administrative work or teaching in our first year program and also a second year course. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks so much, Carol. I definitely resonate with you with not the gory bits of biomedical. So thanks so much for sharing. Now I'm going to pass it over to Assistant Professor Dean from the Okanagan campus.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you next year, hopefully. My name's Dean Richards. I'm an assistant professor of teaching at UBC Okanagan. I'm also the program chair of our mechanical and our manufacturing engineering programs. My undergraduate is electrical engineering, and I'll be teaching in the computer engineering program, which is our brand new program next year. So as you can see, actually the only program I'm not involved in is the civil engineering program. And part of that is because I'm actually, my background is robotics and automation, and that's a discipline in engineering that really draws on kind of a diverse skill set and knowledge. So I kind of fit in a lot of different kind of specializations. I guess I think one of the prompts was, how did I choose engineering? Truth be told, I really enjoyed mathematics and science, and I also really enjoyed teaching. So it kind of seemed like a natural choice to go into engineering. After my PhD, which I did in California, I spent a couple of years working in the computer chip manufacturing area and living the Southern California dream. And I quit that job and I moved down to Chile in South America. And actually my first teaching job was teaching English down in Chile. And I remember I was paid $400 a month. So a little bit of a contrast to my job in Southern California. But that kind of really solidified my passion for teaching and education. And so I'm kind of in the perfect world right now where I get to pursue my teaching and my educational passions, but I also get to work in a technical field like engineering. So I think that's the rest. That's all I have to say about myself.
Thanks so much, Dean. I appreciate you sharing your story, moving through the different roles you've been in. I learned something about you today as well. So thanks so much for sharing. And now over to Assistant Professor Voter.
Hi, my name is Vader Bam. I am an assistant professor at the School of Engineering, so also on the Okanagan campus. I joined UBC pretty recently, 2023, and Dean recruited me into the manufacturing program. Before that, I actually studied industrial engineering in South Africa, did my master's in the UK, went back to South Africa, did a PhD between South Africa and Belgium. And that actually focused on both engineering and economics, because I'm really passionate about thinking how economies develop and how we can, as engineers, contribute to competitiveness and making a contribution to people's livelihoods, also, not just from the engineering side, but also thinking about the economy on a broader scale and thinking about the bigger system that we're in. So that's what my research was focused on, and hence also the connection to economics. In terms of my work at UBC, I teach still at the first years in Introduction to Sustainable Engineering Design, which I think 3 of us on this call are also involved in or have been involved in that course at some point. And that really enables me to also draw on some of the concepts of systems thinking and challenge the engineers who maybe like to think about maths and science in a very detailed scale, but to challenge your critical thinking to also engage with the bigger system that all of this is happening in. And then I also teach the 4th-year course on life cycle assessment, which really goes deep into understanding the sustainability of products and their end-to-end impact on the Earth more broadly. And then I'm also the only one on this call, I think, who's in the research stream. So apart from teaching, I'm also expected to spend enough time on my research to hopefully also become a professor like the other people on this call. And there I really am starting to pivot my work from South Africa, where I initially focused on while I was working at Stellenbosch University before, to now more the Canadian context. And my work there is also on competitiveness and improving how we are developing the manufacturing environment in Canada. And the recent events have, with trade wars and all the contemporary events have made our research even more interesting and relevant. So exciting time to be studying these questions. Yeah, and that's more or less me. Why I went into engineering is also, I guess, that love of math and science that many of us share, but also the desire to make a contribution to society more broadly.
Thank you so much, Voter. And I see all of you are really spurring the audience to put some questions in the Q&A already. So your introductions are definitely connecting with our audience. For everyone here today, we're going to move on to our prepared panel questions first. And then I promise we're going to start moving over to those Q&A questions right afterwards. So just to jump right in, the first questions that we have today is for Assistant Professor Dean and Professor Carroll. The question is, what courses do you typically teach in first year, and what can students expect from your classes? Let's start with Dean, please.
Okay, so I currently teach our Introduction to Computer Programming course. It's called Computation and Instrumentation. I've also taught in the past the calculus courses as well at the first year level. But being a programming course, I kind of strongly believe that programming is a practice that everyone needs to get hands-on experience with. And so in my class, typically students are sitting with their computer, we're going through programming exercises, working on them together. And then I also have developed a series of videos as well, just to supplement on the theory side of things. But typically when we're sitting in class, we're working on problems and developing our programming skills.
Right, and I'll take over on the Vancouver campus. I'm part of a teaching team that teaches our sort of our spine, a sort of a central thread that runs through the middle of first year, which is Introduction to Engineering Design. And engineering is a profession, and so in that course, what students can expect is, even though math and physics and chemistry are really the foundation of so much of what we do in engineering, there's a lot more to it. So in learning about design, students are working in teams. They're doing design challenges. They're learning about project management to some extent, and communication skills and stakeholders and sustainability. And they're applying skills right away. And as part of that, we're trying to make sure students get a good sense of as many different types of engineering disciplines that we offer as possible. So it's really getting a chance to see the diversity of our engineering programs, but it's a very active course where students are learning through doing. And I'll let Dr. Pete actually in the next question build on that, because he is actually our leader. He keeps us all organized and leads us, our whole teaching team, through that course. So I'll save something for him.
Thank you, Dean and Carol. I really appreciate you giving some insight specifically into the courses you teach. The great thing about UBC Engineering is we have that foundational first year, regardless of which campus you're at. So all our engineering students get to experience those courses together, and really learn about the core concepts and foundations need to move into the program that they do after first year. So that leads us into our next question. Thank you so much, Carol, for that great transition. The next question is for Voder and Pete, and is, can you share an example of how you make your course content engaging or relevant to real-world engineering? So we're going to start with Professor Pete for this one.
Sure. So there's a number of things I think to say here. One of them is that there are a number of competencies that are expected of all graduating engineers, no matter which school you go to in Canada, and in fact around the world. One of the main things that we try and do is make sure that there's an exposure to these different things. Professor Carroll mentioned teamwork and design and project management and so on. And you get better at those things by actually doing them. So it's not about sitting in a room listening to a lecture. It's about engaging with teams, working on projects, working on delivering presentations or building things. To give a more specific couple of examples, in our first year program at Vancouver, students work on a project related to transportation and bike lanes, looking at the city of Vancouver and where would our next bike lanes, where should they go? Not unlike what a professional engineer working in the city engineering department would work on. And so there's a recommendation that considers broad needs of the city, the society, and so on. But then we also have projects where students are building things. There's an autonomous clause where there's microcontrollers and they're using hand tools to actually craft something out of sheet metal that has to achieve particular functions, or rapid prototyping projects where we're using computer-aided design tools. And again, all of these, we're trying to think of what are the types of skills that a practicing engineer would use. And not just the individual skills, but how they work in concert. So design plus teamwork, plus communication, plus project management, all embedded in one real world project. So we go through about 7 different projects, as a matter of fact, over 8 months in Vancouver. So lots of different experiences. And just to tie this up, as Carol had mentioned, we do want to give exposure to all the different dimensions and branches of engineering, so the different disciplines that students could go in. So you get a real flavor within first year of what an engineer does and where you can take your engineering degree.
Okay, and then just reflecting on the Okanagan campus, I would say without coordinating, I made the same notes. So I'm not going to try and duplicate all of that, but in essence, group projects and learning how to work in a multidisciplinary group really is a core skill for engineer, and something that you'll get taught throughout your 4 or 5 years at UBCO. And I was just last week, we had our final capstone project expo. where people from industry would come to also see what our students have been up to in their final year and the projects that they as groups were delivering for industry clients. So all our fourth years work on or final years work on a project for an industry client. And it's amazing to see the creativeness of the students and how much they've learned in their years during their degree, and how effective they are in now solving a real problem. And I think that's a key hallmark and a way for us to make sure your journey at UBC is really valuable, is throughout the years to intertwine those real world problems. And even in our second year, last year, I was a adjudicator for one of my colleagues who had the students focused on a project of how do we enable and come up with new products and designs to aid firefighters. And there was a really topical question after some of the fires that were in the Okanagan. And then we would get people from the local industry, including the fire marshal of Kelowna, who came and was an adjudicator and could give students feedback on their designs and which ones were really terrible ideas and which ones really great ideas, and explain why. So we really try as instructors to make sure you're working on relevant problems and you get feedback from people who would actually want to use your designs, so that you get a feeling for what works in real life.
Thanks so much to both of you for sharing. It really sounds like from the first term, students get that exposure to hands-on and that teamwork, which we know is so essential for engineering. And Boder, I like how you extended it throughout their whole year. It's a really good point that yes, it starts in first year, but that's integrated throughout every year of engineering to help you build on those skills and be ready for that workforce. So thank you both so much for sharing just some examples of the course content and how it's related to real-world engineering. So our next question is back over to Carol and Dean, and that question is, what do you think is the biggest academic challenge first-year engineering students face? And the sub-question to that is, what resources on campus do students often underuse, but you think they really should take advantage of? And we'll start with Carol for this one.
I think the biggest challenge, there's two pieces to it. One is the pace, the speed at which material is covered at university. The terms are shorter than you have at high school, so sort of 12 to 13 weeks and then exams. And the assessments, midterms and finals, they're worth a fair bit, right? So it's some of these things are sort of high value assessments where, 10, 20, 30, 40% of your course grade comes down to, writing one test. And the thing that is the challenge that goes along with that is you have a lot more independence. Unlike high school, some of the larger classes, attendance typically isn't taken. If you don't show up to class, often there's no short-term consequence, but there is a long-term consequence. So you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your day-to-day activities, for keeping up with things. And it can be tempting sometimes when you're tired to sleep in, but really going to class, staying on top of things, that really helps you. And it's that level of freedom, you have to sort of adapt to it. And plus, you're sort of doing your own laundry and your own shopping and your own, if you're in residence, you're not doing your own cooking, but maybe you wish you were. You have a lot of other things to take care of. And so you have to balance all those things and keep track of things. So there's time management involved. One of the underused resources, I would say, is your instructors. Coming to class, asking questions, going to office hours, getting to know your instructors. Those are... Not as many students take advantage of things like office hours as we wish they would. There's also a lot of advising resources. There's student groups that get together and put on tutorials. There's all sorts of other ways to work on homework together and learn from each other. But I would say just making the most of every class is something that students should think about doing.
So yeah, I'll after teaching first year programming this year, I think I noticed a lot of students actually struggling with how to appropriately use some of the generative AI tools that are out there nowadays, which I think is a very dangerous but also a super beneficial tool to us right now. And I think professors and students are trying to figure this all out together. But what I do see is it's very useful for students to kind of give them an extra resource in terms of understanding solutions and generating solutions. But then it also gives students sometimes a false sense of understanding as well, especially when you go into an assessment and you're expected to produce or generate a solution on your own without the use of an AI tool. So I kind of see that tool being used in both good and bad ways. Another challenge I think that students often have is just the expectation in engineering is that you are applying and adapting knowledge and theory to solve problems rather than just regurgitating information or trying to solve problems that are fairly similar to maybe practice problems that you've been working on. So there's this expectation that you can use what you've learned to then solve more open-ended problems. In terms of resources, this is not really maybe necessarily related to what I just talked about, but we here in the Okanagan, we do have our engineering academic services, which Maria and Kyle are part of. That's embedded within the School of Engineering. So anyone in that engineering academic services is like intimately aware of our curriculum, knows all of the professors. They can also direct you very well to the other resources on campus. And so they should be kind of your first point of contact for a lot of things. Yeah, I definitely see some students kind of showing up for final exams and I think, oh, you really should have reached out to engineering academic services probably like 3 months ago. Because, if you wait till final exam times, it's often too late to kind of get yourself back on track.
Thanks so much, Carol and Dean. Really great overview of some of the main things that we see from first-year students, the freedom. I remember that too from coming to high school, university, is I have so much time that I can do with what I want. Definitely a challenge. And Dean, I appreciate you bringing up AI because that is a question that we get quite commonly as well, related to how can we use that, what's allowed, and great touch points for both of you. Carol, I also appreciate you talking about instructors because that is going to relate right into our next question for Voder and Pete. And the question for both of you is, how do you prefer students reach out to you if they have any questions or need help? So maybe we'll start with Voder for this one.
Okay, so it will kind of depend on each course. So at the beginning of each course, you receive a syllabus which would explain the particular course's standard operating procedures and who you should contact for which kind of questions. And it'll also be explained usually in the first couple of lectures. But generally, the way that you would interact with your professors, so usually something that's already been briefly mentioned is the office hours. So what that means is professor usually provides certain hours in the week that they are available for questions with an open door for that particular course. And you can drop in and ask any questions you have during that time. In addition, we've got a platform called Canvas. So that's an online platform where all the information is posted about the course, all the slides, any additional resources. Usually all the assignments are on there. And on that platform, there's the ability to also send your instructor a message. And for our large first-year course, that's in fact our preferred platform. We say instead of sending us an email, send us a Canvas message because that enables us to immediately know which course and section you're in and provides us with a lot of background information that makes correspondence much quicker. But that would depend on each course. We also have a bit of extra complications where we have different instructors that say take responsibility for the theory or the project, and then depending on your type of question, you would contact the different instructors. You also have, in some of the courses, you have a TA assigned to you. So that would be a teaching assistant, so that's usually a graduate student that is helping out with specifically the lab part. So that would be the practical part or the project part, or actually you spend time in the lab. And these teaching assistants are another great resource for you to go to first, get feedback really quickly, and hopefully are able to have some of your questions answered there much quicker than maybe even going to the instructor first. And so it is course dependent, but I would say those are probably some of the main resources. It's office hours, Canvas messages or emails, depending on the instructor. Sometimes even there's something called discussion forums sometimes on Canvas where you can post questions that even some of your classmates are able to answer. And again, that depends on how the instructor has structured their Canvas page, and then the TAs, the teaching assistants, are also usually a great resource. So for my courses, those are the 4 main tools that we use to answer questions, or ways that you can reach out to the instructors to get assistance.
Great. And I was going to say much of the same. I'll add 2 additional points. One is one of the things we encourage a lot of our students to do is in between class. So classes will run either 80 minutes or 50 minutes. Usually there's a 10-minute break between classes. And that's often an ideal time to for a short question with a professor. So you can just come up to the front of the room and ask your question. Often, well, my personal favorite way to answer questions is walking between classes with students, or if a student has a break afterwards and I have a break, we'll often take a leisurely walk and chat that way. So it does depend a little bit on the course. Different courses have different policies, as was mentioned. Office hours are a great place to ask questions if there's something, well, as an example, maybe you're on a project team and you're trying to think of how to get the team to work a little bit better together. Maybe there's some tension between teammates. That's a difficult question to answer by email, but face-to-face, in person, it's a lot easier to work through scenarios and to give advice, for example. And then I did, as a second one, I did want to emphasize the discussion boards. A lot of courses, especially if it's a large course where there's a question that you have, quite often it's going to be a question that many other students have as well. And so discussion boards are often an ideal place to ask those types of course-specific questions where you might pose the question, the instructor or somebody might answer it, and everybody has access to that information. So the flip side of that is, if you have a question, often those discussion boards are a good first place to see, you know, did somebody else already ask this question? Maybe there's already an answer available for it. But maybe the last thing this question off would be, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is we want to make sure that students have access to information, that they get answers to their questions, and a lot of it is about what the student is most comfortable with. So whether somebody comes to office hours, where they write an email, whether they come up at the end of the class, all of those are good ways to get answers to questions. And so don't be afraid to reach out. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you both. And Dr. Pete, you wrapped that up perfectly for me. So I'm just going to transition to the next thing from there. But as you can see, our professors are really here to help you. They're here to answer questions, and they want you to come ask questions, and they want to interact with you. So please take advantage of all of those different ways to reach out to your professors if you decide to come here in September, because they're really here to help you. We have many questions coming into the Q&A, so we're going to transition out of the panel to live Q&A here. Just a reminder to everyone, if you are submitting anything into the chat, please move your question over to the Q&A. You can also upvote questions in the Q&A, and I see many of you have already been doing that, which is great. For our professors here today, Kyle and I are going to be asking you questions. We won't direct it at a specific person. We'll ask the question. Whoever would like to answer, feel free to do so. You can jump in as well to add more points after someone else has answered if you have additional information. The first question here that I would like to ask is about research opportunities. The student is asking if there is research opportunities, and if so, how can they apply or like reach out to your lab to learn about those research opportunities?
So maybe I'll jump in from my, again, just 1.5 years experience at UBC. So maybe some of our colleagues can add more. I guess this is taking the undergraduate perspective. So for undergraduates, there is something called the USRA, so Undergraduate Student Research Awards. And that's usually something you can apply for with a professor. Usually you would identify a professor who is teaching you, or who you've met maybe otherwise, and you're interested in their research, and then they would help you craft an initial proposal, and you can apply for this USRA funding that provides you the opportunity to do an internship, a paid internship during the summer months. And that really is a great opportunity to get exposure to different research labs where you may have some interest in whatever the professor is working on. There are also other programs, student work loan program. I don't know exactly the name of it, but that's another program that also provides funding for these types of internships, usually during the summer, but some of them can also run over the winter months as well, and maybe on and not a full-time rate, so you can even do it in addition to your studies. But in general, don't overcommit. That would be my main advice, is during the first year, try and make sure you leave enough space for your academics. It's easy to get overextended, and your academics comes first. But usually the summer months, if everything goes well, then the summer months are a great opportunity to do some internships with a particular research lab.
I'll add in two other possibilities there. One is if you apply to and become part of the co-op program. Sometimes faculty members who have spots in their lab for a student researcher will post them there as a co-op job. So that is one way. And so co-op wouldn't start until sort of after your second year, but that is one place where there would be some opportunities. That's probably the closest thing to a database of sorts, but it's constantly changing. And the other one is through knocking on doors, networking, getting to know your faculty, your professors, finding out what they do, finding out who does things that you're interested in, and asking, right? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no, but sometimes you sort of have to reach out and try to make those connections, and sometimes they work out.
Thanks so much for sharing, Booter and Carol. I'll actually add another opportunity in there as well for research. As a UBC student, you do have the ability to study abroad and potentially earn courses from a different university in a different country that count towards your degree. As UBC Engineering students, you can even be doing that further with either the Go Global or the Coordinated International Exchange Program, but there's also research opportunities. You can earn a research opportunity at a different institution, maybe follow in similar footsteps to Professor Dean, head down to the University of California, Berkeley for a summer and do some research. There's lots of opportunities. UBC is a research institution at heart. So if you're interested in research, coming to the right place at UBC. Okay, next question here. This is a good one. Open to anyone who's comfortable answering. I am interested in pursuing robotics, particularly the software, computer, and brain aspect of robotics. I'm considering engineering physics, but I know it's competitive, and I'm also interested in computer engineering. Is anyone interested in chatting about maybe either of those programs?
Yeah, I can take that, Kyle. And I can't necessarily speak for some of the programs on the Vancouver campus, so I'll leave that to Professor Pete and Carol if they want to add anything. But the computer engineering program at UBC Okanagan is a relatively new program. We just have our first cohort of students going through it right now. But I will be involved in teaching some of the third-year courses in that program, and those two are intimately related to robotics and intelligence. So one of the courses is industrial automation. The other is called software system design. But in that course, we have a lab scale manufacturing facility that you get practice programming and designing kind of the intelligence that's used to automate that process. So lots of kind of hands-on experience with some hardware. Based on your interests, I would say computer engineering at UBCO would be a good option for you. We also have robotics courses within our elective offering for the electrical and the mechanical programs here at UBCO as well, as well as a mechatronics concentration. So there are lots of ways to kind of get exposed to those topics. And yeah, I don't know if Dr. or Professor Pete or Carol have anything to add.
I would say you answered it well. I think one of the advantages that you get at UBC from both campuses is broad exposure in first year, and then progressively more specialization, whether it's going into a particular discipline or a specialization within a discipline, that comes a little bit later. So you get a chance to learn a bit more about what all the disciplines involve, as well as explore what your own interests are. So I think it's great to come in with an idea of, robotics. Just to emphasize what Professor Dean had said, or Assistant Professor Dean had said, the areas of automation, mechatronics, I mean, that touches computer, it touches electrical, it touches mechanical, certainly engineering, physics. At UBC Vancouver, there's also an integrated engineering program, and that's there's a lot of ability to tailor a degree there. So good to have a general direction that you have in mind. What we advise our students in first year is keep an open mind until essentially around this time of the year, when you really need to start making a decision about your second year program. And so use that first year to explore and really study what your options are. But all of them are good choices, I think, that are mentioned. They can all get you to that place you want to be.
Thank you so much. And that was a great overview. And I really liked how you went over that foundational first year again, just to remind them there's time for everyone to decide, because we do see a lot of students change their mind in that first year when they really get exposure to all of those different programs. So it's nice to come in with an idea, but like Professor Pete says, keep an open mind, because you may find something you didn't even realize was out there. The next question is more related to preparing for classes. This student is asking, when do first year students get access to their course materials or content for the start of the semester? Related to this is questions along like, when do they need to get, like, if they have a book they need to purchase, or make sure they have the online content, those sort of questions.
Maybe I'll have a go at that one. So as Wouter explained, all of the courses generally have a presence on a learning management system called Canvas, and each course has its own sort of instance, its own sort of space on that application, and usually information doesn't tend to release until fairly close to the start of term. So very late August, depends on what the first day of class is. The good news is that you don't necessarily need a textbook for every single course. For instance, in the math department, they've got a lot of open resources. A lot of the courses, actually, you'll find in your first and second year, the instructors make use of either open resources, or you rely on course notes, or or there's books that are electronic versions of books that are attached to the course through from the library. There's sort of digital versions that you can look at. So the things like textbooks, the burden there over the years has been reduced, which is good news for students because it saves money. But there isn't a huge amount of time to do sort of preparing ahead. The one thing I will say is there is a set of short courses called is it Academic Essentials? Dr. Pete, you've been involved in those, and those are an opportunity. So if you stay connected to the UBC Engineering Facebook and different sort of social media things, I think they will release information on that, as will sort of UBC in general. And those are courses you can, not for credit, but just good opportunities to brush up on some of the skills that maybe have you've sort of faded a little bit over the summer.
Maybe to add, so one of the things, so Academic Essentials is one sort of transitional program. The other one is Jumpstart. And so the Jumpstart program, it's not about the academics, but that transition and knowing where to go on campus to get different things, knowing where your classrooms are, that orientation piece, that's covered by Jumpstart. So an optional program, but that gets you a lot of the questions of where do I go to pick up the things I need are answered through there. And in addition, Academic Essentials, it has some math, some writing. Again, it's an optional program, but it does, in addition, cover some of the topics related to transitioning to university, how to make that transition easier.
Maybe I'll add one more thing. If you're thinking about, preparations for university, is be strategic with it and really identify what you think are maybe your current weaknesses, which may not be academic. If you're struggling with time management or, healthy living habits, those are good things to kind of work on at a personal level before you get to university, because once you start your classes, you're going to be like very consumed, and those healthy habits will help you kind of in terms of mental and physical well-being as well. So don't just focus on, doing math, even though we're all excited to do more math. Think about those other things as well.
Thank you all. And Dean, I just want to jump in on that response to see if anyone else wants to build on that, because there has also been several versions of that question that have come through the Q&A, is like recommendations or advice that all of you could give related to how they can prepare over the summer, both academically and non-academically. So I think you guys all did a really good job talking about academically, but if anyone has any other advice for the non-academic side to build off of Dean's, it is a question that's been asked about 4 times in here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I already kind of brought it up, but getting used to using a calendar and making sure that you're keeping track of the tasks that need to be that you need to do, like that's really, really important, because you can't just kind of wait for deadlines to creep up on you and things like that. So have some kind of system for keeping track of things, whether or not it's a notebook or a digital calendar that you have on your phone, or whatever kind of system that you have in place. To be good to get that figured out before you start.
One other one to add would be from the social perspective, and I think both Academic Essentials and Jumpstart a core element or a core portion of those programs is helping to build a network of people who are in your program. So getting to know others, building that social network, knowing somebody else going through the same thing as you. Overall, this is a huge transition, and it can feel really daunting. And if you feel like you're the only one that's experiencing that, that can it could be, well, maybe not debilitating, but it certainly makes the transition more challenging. If you've got that supportive network, and if you recognize, we're all going through this at the same time, it's a lot easier. And so things like Academic Essentials and Jumpstart, there's a lot of discussion of how do you manage your time? What are some good strategies for doing that? Where do you go to get help, whether that's academic help or otherwise? So I think that's good use of time in the summer. I would say at the same time, the summer is a time to relax and unwind. You're going to have a busy academic year. You don't want to fill your entire summer with doing work. The courses, the programs, they're set up so that when the course starts, that's when the course starts. You don't have to worry about doing a whole bunch of preparatory work before a course starts. You want to come in prepared, but the intent is not to be working all through the summer either.
Thank you so much to both of you. And I also just wanted to plug Create at the Okanagan campus and Imagine Day at the Vancouver campus. This is like our orientation day, our welcome day. It's full of a lot of energy and fun. And a lot of students have, I think like every student I know who's been to those days have told me that's where they've met like their core group of friends that they still know after they graduate. So even if you're a student from the area, you're invited to come to this orientation day. Highly recommend that you do come to that, to just really join in the excitement of that first day at your post-secondary institution, and really sort of learn about who's around you and make some friends on that day. So Kyle, did you have another question lined up there?
I do, yeah. And I'll also just throw a shout out to the online course called UBC 101. It guides you through your next steps and what you need to know, and maybe what you don't know that you don't know yet, for all this planning. But lots of good stuff coming through. We'll put the link into that one as well. Okay, so I've prepared. I've followed all of the professors' excellent tips throughout the summer. Now I've arrived. It's first week in my first year at UBC Engineering, and I want to get involved. Should I join a design team? right away? Is that recommended to do in first year? Maybe a design team or an engineering club? And if yes or no, maybe you could also speak about just what are design teams and engineering clubs in general.
Well, Dr. Pete, do you want to?
Sure, I can say a couple things. So the design teams, there are a lot of them across the two campuses. Essentially, these are extracurricular students work, self-manage on projects, everything from building rockets, functioning race cars. There's projects related to biomedical, almost anything, soccer playing robots. I've forgotten what the total count is, but we've got to be up well over 30 projects or 30 design teams. Two things I'll say about the design teams. One is these are great experiences, but they are in addition to your academic course load. And so knowing a little bit about yourself and your other obligations outside of school will be part of the guiding, whether you join a team or not. At the same time, if you join a team and you find that it's too much, you would not be the first year student that has happened to. The design teams already, all of the members of the design teams went through first year. They know what it's like, and so whether you join or don't join, you can sort of monitor along the way. If the workload is too high and you're on a design team, you can ask to take a smaller role or perhaps even step off of the team, for example. So I think the design teams are great experiences, but it's really about managing your own time and your own expectations. You're not expected to join a design team, if that helps.
I would add to that one thing, which is UBC is a large school, big campus, lots of people. The benefit of that is that there's every opportunity under the sun. I mean, not just design teams, but there's student government, there's clubs, there's of every kind, of every different type of group of, every different interest you can think of, sports, whatever. And so there's a lot of choice. I would say that because it's a big place, joining something that you're passionate about, something that you like, something you're carrying with you from high school, or trying something new is a great idea. But be a little bit judicious. Don't try and join everything all at once. It's very tempting in the first weeks. Imagine Day has a big fair out on the main mall, and people trying to sign you up to things, and it's all, and you don't have any homework yet, so it seems like a great idea at the time. But think about, what it is that you really want to explore, and sort of choose wisely. Don't try and choose everything, but choose wisely, because it is a great opportunity to get to know a smaller group of people quite well, and form a friend group, and that might be people outside of engineering. It might be other people in engineering. It depends what things you take interest in. But it is a great opportunity to take, a big place and make it feel a little bit smaller through those opportunities. But I would say that you do have to, use your judgment and plan a little bit, and know that you will be busy with your courses and that academics are important and sort of have to come first. But if you plan your time well, you can explore some of these different things, and you could do different ones each year, or you could get really involved in just one or two. You sort of have to keep judging and correcting as you go along.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to that, Carol, is that there's always the option to go at a slower pace through your program. So if design teams or extracurricular activities are something that's important to you, but you're having trouble keeping up with those and your academics, you may consider the 5-year degree plan, which our curriculum is designed for students to do it in 4 or 5 years, or even more years, if necessary. So I think it's all about prioritizing. As Professor Carroll said, academics do come first and foremost, because if you're not doing well in your academics, you won't be at UBC at all, and then you won't have any of the opportunities. So the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you stay at UBC, which is doing well in your academics.
Thank you all. I really appreciate you bringing that perspective. And like you all mentioned, joining clubs and science teams are super important, and they're really fun to take a break and relax, but balancing that appropriately is important. So if you ever have any questions at either campus, you can also come talk to academic advisors, talk to senior students, see how they've done it, and get some advice there. But thank you all for sharing. We are pretty much at time, so I'm hoping I can ask each of you just to share a quick piece of advice for our incoming first-year students who may be here today. Something that, like an advice to set them up for success in their first semester at UBC. And we can go in the same order as introduction, so we can start with Professor Peter.
Sure. So my quick advice, I think it's something I mentioned earlier, and that is recognize that this is a big transition. It's an exciting transition. It's a lot of fun, but it is a transition, and that means don't be too hard on yourself. Enjoy the experience, do your best, but recognize that you're going through a big life-changing experience.
One piece of advice I like to give is, you're probably thinking about this as the next step in your education, which it is, but I also want you to think of it as the first step in your profession, because engineering is a profession, and the end of the degree, you're sort of well set up to go directly out into industry. As such, if you're thinking about it as sort of, that first step in ultimately getting a job, think about, going to school is your job. Go to class, stay on top of your assignments so that you can ask questions ahead of when they're due, if you have them, and so that you can work with other people and work through problems and so on. Sort of trying to stay on top of things and treating it, making the most of every day, I think does help set you up for success in the long run.
My piece of advice would be, this is supposed to be a fun and exciting time of your life. I have some of my best friends are still friends that I met in my first year as an undergraduate student. So if you're not enjoying yourself, you're not having a good time, reflect on that. Talk to people, talk to your friends, talk to your advisors, and see what changes you can make in order to make sure this is a great time.
Yeah, and this is a really big question, actually, and there's a lot of thoughts going through my mind. I want to pick off what has been said as well. So, I mean, it will change you. Your university time will change you in many ways. You will make friends here for the rest of your life, for sure, and invest in those friendships. Engineering will change you. It'll change the way your brain works. It'll change the way you think. It'll change what you see when you're walking outside. And it's also something that will take a lot from you. So you need to be ready also for that commitment. It is not a commitment to take up lightly. It is a big commitment, but it's also a very rewarding one. And yeah, what a privilege to have this opportunity. And we look forward to sharing that with you. This year was the first year I taught first semester, and it was very different from even teaching first year, second semester. You can see a little bit that first week, the panic. It is overwhelming. It is a lot of new things, but it's amazing to see by the end of the term how confident the students are, how much they've grown, and how much more sure they are of themselves. So it is perhaps challenging time, but embrace also the uncertainty. And like Dean said, if you can enjoy the process, that really is important to you. It's also not a 1 week sprint. It is a 4+ year marathon. So you also have to pace yourself and make sure you also look after yourself for the longer run.
Thank you all for that great advice. And what's exciting for everyone that's here today is that if you decide to come to UBC Engineering at either of our campuses, you'll be able to meet these professors in your first year. You'll be able to talk to them, and you've already got to interact with them and ask them questions and have them share some of their advice with you today. So it's really a great opportunity to just already have a friendly face, someone there that you can go say, hey, I was on that call and I heard your advice and I'm excited to be in your class. So thank you to everyone who's here today. Thank you to Professor Pete, Professor Carroll, Assistant Professor Dean, and Assistant Professor Voter for being here today. Before everyone signs off, we have a couple closing slides. Kyle's just going to bring those up. Just a few reminders and ways to stay connected with us. Perfect.
Thanks, Marie.
So, thank you. So for, like Kyle mentioned, is keep checking your emails. You're going to be getting emails from UBC. You get emails from UBC Engineering, myself and Franco, sending you information about upcoming events or just things to be aware of, dates and deadlines. You can also chat with a current student at either the Okanagan or Vancouver campus. We have a great chat with the student platform where we have current students in many different programs across many different year levels that you can just ask their advice and their student experience. You can also check out our engineering stories team. These are current engineering students that are taking videos of their life as engineers at UBC. So very cool videos and insights into a day as an engineer. The next slide is about our upcoming events. So we're wrapping up our bi-weekly events for this spring, but we do still have a drop-in advising session on April 29th. This is from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Registration is required and you can register through our events page. I'm going to, it's actually at the bottom of this slide here, and I'll also post it in the chat in a minute. UBC is also hosting UBC Welcomes You events across Canada and around the world throughout April. Some have already happened, but some are still happening throughout the end of April. So I'd recommend you check the u.ubca events page to see if there's an event near you. And if you've missed any of our previous events, you can actually find them on our UBC Engineering or School of Engineering YouTube channels. We've hosted events that talk about co-op, student experience. We've met with some alumni from both campuses and women in engineering. So those are posted. I saw there was some questions in the Q&A about co-op, questions about when schedules come up. So feel free to check some of those previous recordings. And you can also connect with us if your question wasn't answered today. So this last slide is just an overview of the many different links that you can reach out to UBC admissions, as well as UBC Engineering. Like I mentioned, the u.ubca webpage, our engineering websites, our engineering stories team, and then you can reach out to myself and Kyle at the Okanagan campus at our soe.advising@ubc.ca email, or Franco, my colleague at the Vancouver campus, at outreach@apsci.ubc.ca. You can also check out the UBC admissions blog, great resources for like quick articles and tips related to dates and deadlines and very common questions asked throughout that admission cycle. So that is it for our session today. Once again, I want to say a big thank you to Professor Pete, Professor Carroll, Assistant Professor Dean, and Assistant Professor Voder, as well as Kyle for being here today and sharing all of your experience. I also want to take a minute to thank everyone who joined us today to learn a bit more about their first year experience, to ask all your questions. We're super excited to see you next year, and we hope you join us in September at either of our campuses. Thank you all and have a good evening or a good day, depending where you're joining us from today. Bye, everyone.